Hey everyone, Tim here from Snap Attack. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dig right into this week's Threat Snapshot. So first up, we're going to talk about a recent CVE. This one is a 0-day that was affecting WinRAR, popular file archiving tool. And what was interesting about this is it allowed, full arbitrary code execution. So user gets a file archive, all they would have to do is double click to extract it, and this would run arbitrary commands from the attacker. So Group IB was the original group that found this. They saw evidence of cyber criminals using this and distributing these malicious archives on trading forums. Again, trying to extract financial data from unsuspecting users. But this is a 0-day. It is known there are POCs available. So best opportunity is to patch WinRAR, but this could easily be used by other threat actors now that details of this exploit are known. So let's take a look. What does this look like in Snap Attack? So we're able to again replicate the POC here. We've got the file archive and we've got an older version of WinRAR that's installed. I can go ahead, I can hit play here. We're going to see us double clicking. We're going to extract. And you see a little, command line pop up in the background there. We've got our calc execution there too. So this here is, again, very, very easy to exploit. Again, all the user would have to do is open up, the file. We can pivot over, see what this looks like on the process graph. So again, we've got the user opening WinRAR, again, like double clicking the archive. And then you're going to see when they go through and extract, you have that CMD that's launching. You're going to see some other characteristics here. This one is going to open up a stage 2 using WMIC, and then that's going to, in our case, pop calc, but that could be doing something, something else as well. So how would I detect this sort of behavior? A couple of different opportunities. If you've got process creation events, you can be looking at WinRAR as the process, and you can look for some of these suspicious command lines here. So you can see that this is a CMD, and it has that, again, the file name, but then there's a space dot, and then the command that's going to be executed. So that's a very good indicator for this particular threat. We can also look at file events. So anytime WinRAR is creating these .cmd, .batch, or .executable files, that file extension is actually a file, and that is going to be able to be executed, and that's how this additional attack vector works. So you can definitely look for both of those opportunities and hunt for that activity in your network. Next thing we wanted to talk about is Flax Typhoon. So this is a Chinese nation-state actor that Microsoft is tracking. This campaign was targeting Taiwanese organizations, so this is politically motivated. We've covered other threat actors here as well from, China previously, and probably most recently Volt Typhoon. Some similarities that we have here. So they use a lot of living off the land techniques. Again, that's very common, especially because they're able to avoid a lot of defenses because these are, again, legitimately signed binaries. They have, common executable purposes, for system administration and things. We can see some of the specific TTPs that were used in this campaign. So one of the ways that you can attribute this to China is use of the China Chopper webshell, which we'll talk about in a little bit of depth. China Chopper has been around for well over a decade. The webshell and its capabilities have evolved over time, so we'll look at a little bit more recent sample. But that is something that's very interesting, especially if it's a external facing web server. Using a lot of other common tools, Juicy Potato. I know we've talked about potatoes rather recently. You'll see Mimikatz. You'll see some other clients and tools. Persistence mechanisms. You'll see some tried and true things like enabling RDP on a machine and then using a sticky keys backdoor. Not sure what year this is, but that's still a valid thing. I don't know if that's more of an insult to the organizations that are victims or the threat actor that is using this technique, but either way, this is something back in the day that I would use as a red team against, a lot of times students in like a CCDC type event. And it's kind of shocking to still see that prevalent here in 2023. So a lot of other interesting things here. Take a look at the report. We've distilled some of that down into Snap Attack. Did have to point this out again. It is kind of hilarious that we've got a nation-state adversary that is still using a sticky keys backdoor. So let's take a quick look at sticky keys itself. This one is a threat from our partner Mandiant and the Mandiant security validation product. We also have these through Atomic Red and other captured threats. You can see here the commands that are being run and where we're going to actually likely detect this. So the sticky keys backdoor is part of the image file execution options, and we're really setting a debugger. So this works against a lot of accessibility tools, sticky keys in particular. You hit the shift key multiple times and that's going to pop up. As a debugger here, this is going to launch CMD, and the beauty of this technique is not so much when you set it here, which again we can watch the video, we can see this being set. But the beauty is, as a backdoor, all I have to do is RDP into a system. There's going to be a login prompt, but I don't need to know any credentials. I just hit the shift key 5 times, and then I'm going to be popped up with an admin shell because this is actually being launched as an administrator there. So very, very effective. Again, it's harder to detect there. We do have detection opportunities here, and specifically we're going to be looking at how this backdoor is being set through the registry. So a couple ways you can do that. This one here is a community detection. We're going to see this as a registry event. This is here going to detect a lot of different auto run keys. We can see, where is it at in here? Right here, it's looking for that target object, that image file execution options. But there's a lot of different other places in the registry where you can set backdoors and persistence mechanisms. So I know a lot of tools, again, you have a limited number of detections that you can deploy or monitor, so having multiple detection opportunities in a single detection is good. So this would be a good detection to deploy if you are monitoring registry values. You could also look for process creation type events that have this. You can see here like registry add, having this image file execution options. So that's another way that you could look at this as well. Moving on to something a little more interesting, that China Chopper web shell that I mentioned. So this has been around for over a decade. There's lots of threat research on these. You'll see some of the patterns. This one here is actually going to be emulated from TrustWave Spider Labs blog. This is a little newer version, and the China Chopper web shell itself isn't that interesting. It's essentially just like a very bare bones web shell that's running an eval statement. So all of the logic is in the controller. We're going to just simply download and execute this web shell into our IIS web root. And really the interesting piece here, we've got a Windows machine as the attacker, and we've got the server controller that's up here. So once the web shell has been downloaded, we can connect to that. You're going to see it's putting in an address for that web shell and where that shell is located, putting in a password, and we're going to be able to connect to this. So all of the commands are going to, again, be sent from here. Like I said, they're going to be evaled. So we can upload and download files. We can, run arbitrary commands against that machine. Lots of different, things that we can do. This is, again, a full C2 server. So lots of detection opportunities, and it's going to be really dependent on what the attacker is doing within there. Like a lot of web shells, these are very detectable. You can see this very quickly on the process graph here. So our IIS w3wp.exe, you can see some of these invocations here. So this is, again, running a netstat command. This one here is echoing whom am I. You could also see some of the file creation and other sort of things based on this. So easy to detect. And again, this sort of W3WP spawning CMDs or other processes, that parent-child process relationship is a good detection opportunity, which again kind of leads over here. This is a Sigma community detection looking for web shells that are spawned or shells that are spawned from a web shell. You can see that this would affect other ones. So you're talking about Java, you see PHP shells, you see Tomcat. Again, this sort of pattern works. It's very reliable. This is a good behavioral detection to have in your arsenal. If you wanted something a little bit more specific to China Chopper, you can look for some of the network data and patterns. So this is a Zeek rule where you can take a look, and you're going to see things like the base 64 encoded data that's being processed. like I said, they're going to be passing code in here as part of it. You can see the, like, again, how we're going to do an eval of this code and run that because this is being evaled. So that is a very interesting pattern and something that you can use to detect this activity because, again, their web shell is relatively minimal. All the logic is in the controller piece that, again, is not going to be on the victim machine. That's going to be the attacker running it. If you want more Flax Typhoon, we do have an actor collection around there with additional threats, detections, attack scripts. So be sure to check that out. Last thing that we want to highlight, probably one of the most interesting pieces this week, is the FBI went duck hunting and they caught a Qakbot botnet. So huge shout out to the teams that were working on this. It is never easy to take down a large criminal organization and a botnet. So there's definitely a lot of work behind the scenes that goes through this. Really the interesting piece here is, again, just the breadth and the scope of this. So as part of this operation, when they gained access to the C2 infrastructure, they identified over 700,000 affected endpoints worldwide, 200,000 in the US. So this is a very wide botnet, very wide-reaching. They were able to disrupt the botnet with an uninstall file, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. They did release a hash of this uninstall file. And what we're seeing, as well as others, so this is a Dell SecureWorks blog, that uninstall file is actually a piece of shellcode. That shellcode is going to unpack a custom DLL, which is then going to launch. And if you really care about the inner workings of it, if you've been tracking Qakbot or Qakbot for a while, you'll know that it uses named pipes to communicate. And one of the ways that it does this is it sends and receives a message over that named pipe to basically do a shutdown. So pretty cool how that this was set up. I would say, hey, Qakbot's been, taken down. Do I actually have to do anything? Aren't I safe? Aren't I protected? Big answer to that is still no. You should probably do one last threat hunt. So again, this uninstaller basically disrupted the C2 communications, but this would not remove anything that was already installed on the machine that's affected, any malware. You would want to take a look and see, are there any, evidence of exploitation or exfiltration activity on these hosts? So what we recommend is, we've got a detection here that is going to look for both that shellcode uninstall file as well as the DLL that is being created. So you could run a detection like this, see if you have that uninstaller in your network, and if you do, that means you did have a Qakbot or Qakbot infection at one point or another, and that needs to be investigated and cleaned up. CISA does have a good summary of that too, so if you are affected, you can see some more technical details, again, a little bit more about the infrastructure if you want. Some known C2 servers that they've had you could check out as well as some mitigation and recovery plans here too. So if you are affected, definitely take a look at that. Last piece, do want to plug, we are going to be at the Mandiant MWise conference coming up later in September. I'm going to be speaking about some exciting features in the product around prioritizing threat intelligence, specifically around our new actor software vulnerability pages that we have with additional information from Mandiant's intelligence. And we're going to be talking about a security profile which allows organizations to really tailor and prioritize what threats they want to cover. And AJ, our director of threat research, is going to be talking about how to continuously validate your detections and make sure that you can stand up against threats. So again, both of those talks will be at MWise later this month. We do have passes available if anyone wants a discount. And that concludes our threat snapshot for this week. So it's a weekly series. Like, subscribe, comment, and we see you next time.